The last decade has been full of big ups and downs in the world economy, and after the COVID-19 pandemic, many people wondered how investors and big companies would get back on their feet again. But what no one expected was that the outlook would not improve with a historical rising inflation in the great powers and an active war that directly affects the price of raw materials. Against this situation, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, one of the oldest financial companies in the world, made an alarming forecast about what awaits investors and the market in the near future, possibly being the largest economic hurricane in history. Will the economy and governments be able to withstand a hurricane of the magnitude that Dimon predicts? And how does the Federal Reserve System's strategy influence the spread of the hurricane? While the respected Wall Street leader claimed that the United States banking system is solid and prepared to accept the damages of a problem like this, he also warned all investors that the best is to be ready, because the outlook didn't look as sunny for the economy as expected. That's why today we are going to review his statements and the reasons why this hurricane is impossible to contain. In recent years, the Federal Reserve has had to take decisions to keep the market stable, and one of the biggest was taken recently in early June 2022, when the largest quantitative tightening process in its history began. A situation that the CEO of JP Morgan called a fact that could last in the history books for 50 years. As it's known, a quantitative tightening means stopping the asset acquisition to have an impact on rising inflation and the money supply. But why is this move necessary? According to Dimon, it's an inevitable fact due to the excess liquidity injected into the system. Consequence of the economic maneuvers that the government took to survive the pandemic, it must be neutralized and eliminated to stabilize prices and the currency itself. The big question is, why does the CEO see this as a risk threat? This is because Dimon thinks it's a turbulence for which the market is not prepared, especially considering the increase that the reserve system will have to make in its interest rates. But not everything is a forecast of doom, since the CEO also places a ray of hope on the US financial system, and the confidence that both he and other specialists know that the Federal Reserve System can handle challenges of this magnitude, referring to the fact that the situation is not even close to being as serious as the bursting of the housing bubble of 2008 and the so-called subprime mortgage crisis. However, there are things that cannot be covered with one hand, and one of them is the still active war in Ukraine, which has influenced the price of raw materials such as gas, wheat, and oil, worrying big investors like Dimon, who fear that the organic compound could reach an increase of almost 17%, going from $150 to $175 per barrel. This indicates a big problem for the European Union and the United States, which, despite in general terms, the North American country has the capacity to produce gas and oil of its own, the demand for energy within the territory exceeds its internal supply, so it's seen in the need to import energy. This means that if there is a supply interruption, the 7.9% of oil imported from Russia is put at risk. Despite this, the United States has better damage control expectations than the European Union in this situation, but it could still be seriously affected. These are the two biggest concerns of the CEO of JP Morgan, who, although he didn't compare the situation to a more devastating natural disaster, what is coming for the international market is still worrying, and he placed great emphasis on his colleagues preparing for what is coming, also ensuring that his company is ready to face the turbulent economy that is approaching. His main strategy seems to be contrary to some other companies in the midst of the same situation. This is about keeping the most valuable human resource and calling on more talent, promising to be absolutely punctual with the appropriate payments to preserve the company's status in the financial world. Everything seems to indicate that Dimon's words aren't just an opinion, since the emergency changes he led JP Morgan through demonstrate his veracity and his call to action. This was evidenced when, after giving the statements about what was coming, the company's shares fell by 1.8%, completing an 18% drop so far this year. But the JP Morgan economics team had already adjusted growth expectations in May of this year, showing realism in their predictions, and the path they are going to take with the possible economic hurricane, for which Dimon assures the company is prepared, remaining conservative with its balance sheet. But the Wall Street leader is not the only one who has shown a change in his business strategy, as the disappearance of the low interest rates generated by the pandemic made many capitalists stop investing in new companies, and began to move cautiously for the possible storm and turbulence. An example of this was Sequoia Capital, which, according to the information, held talks with its portfolio companies so that they were prepared for a critical moment caused by inflation, being just one of the many who have alerted their staff for what is to come. Although it's alarming to hear what is coming from the mouth of a respected CEO with decades in banking, it's undeniable that the decisions of the Federal Reserve System have affected big and small companies, which, in contrast to JP Morgan, have been forced to make staffing cuts and stop the searches for new professionals. Such is the case of Meta, led by Mark Zuckerberg, who announced that he was going to reduce the hiring of professionals from middle and senior positions to take care of what was to come. The Robinhood app, for its part, made public his decision to reduce his staff by 9%, in the hope that he will continue meeting his strategic objectives. This would only be the tip of the iceberg of what is to come, because, as Dimon said on the 1st of June, at a conference sponsored by AllianceBernstein Holdings, the economic hurricane is on its way, and the intensity and repercussions it will bring is unknown, alluding to the fact that he doesn't know if it will be equal to or less damaging than Sandy Storm, the hurricane that hit the Caribbean to the east coast of the United States, leaving dozens of victims, electricity problems, and a decrease in the local economy. According to Reuters, even Tesla CEO Elon Musk would be involved among those concerned about the upcoming downsides facing the economy. As it said, he sent an email to executives warning that strategy should be sought to reduce 10% of the staff due to a bad feeling he has about the predictions of the economy. Influential, high-ranking public figures like Elon Musk and Jamie Dimon are applying policies to avoid an economic tragedy in their companies, being this an indicative that it's best to pay attention, taking into account that they are part of a chain of forecasts. But considering the complete overview, because not only have they been fatalistic comments, but the CEO of JP Morgan also predicted a ray of hope, indicating that, at the moment, the sun is still rising, and the Federal Reserve System can still handle the situation, so the hurricane could last less than estimated. The latter is supported by the data provided by the United States, as it's not involved in the international war in Ukraine and Russia, in addition to the cessation of the restrictions that China begins to have, overcoming the blockades created by the COVID-19 pandemic. Being this good news for the North American country, and leaving in doubt how the quantitative tightening of the Fed will affect the US economy, which for now remains in process. These kind of warnings are not uncommon in the world of finance and banking. Many times, the expressions that are used generate alarm and are usually to achieve a direct influence on numbers and actions. However, it's hard to ignore Jamie Dimon's statement and the increasing adaptation moves that other companies are making as they prepare for a situation that jeopardizes their economy and their achievements. For the moment, it's just a warning and advice about being cautious and putting aside the waste of money, but in a few months, weeks, or even days, it could become a reality, and an economic hurricane could wipe out the market. With these uncertainties, we conclude today's video. We hope you liked it. Leave your comments on the video, and if you would like to have a specific topic discussed on the channel, you can also leave your suggestions below. Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.